Your child has just said those dreaded words, "I hate you," and you're left grappling in shock with hurt feelings and wondering how to respond. If this has ever happened to you, know that you are not alone. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible parent, and your relationship with your child is not forever ruined. Today, I'm sharing 5 proven strategies that will help you respond effectively, strengthening your relationship with your child. Wait until you hear tip number 4. It's a complete game changer that most parents miss entirely. I'm going to show you exactly how to respond to being told, "I hate you," using my tried and true 5 C's parenting framework. We'll begin with the first C, communication. One thing that I talk to parents about in my coaching program is being mindful of the words that you use in your household and that you allow other people to use in your household. So hate is a strong word that I generally caution parents to try to avoid because it's such a strong word and has such a negative connotation. One nice thing about using this approach in your parenting is that you're much more likely to hear, "Oh, I'm so angry with you right now," than "I hate you." And as a parent, I take that alternative 10 times out of 10. Now, let's talk about how you implement this approach in your home. So if your child says something like, "I hate broccoli," you might respond with, "Hate's a strong word. Can you substitute it with something still powerful but perhaps more accurate? Like, I strongly dislike the taste of broccoli." Now, if you train your kids over time as incidents like this, "I hate broccoli," come up, to take the word hate and take it out of their regular daily vocabulary, and overall try to encourage them to think more in shades of gray than black and white, what you get as an outcome of using this approach is that you create a more positive vibe in your home. You also train your child to develop stronger emotional intelligence by becoming aware of the full range of human emotions and learning how to correctly identify their feelings. And you're less likely to hear hate when they get really upset with you or anybody else. So this strategy is one to start implementing today to help prevent the next incident of "I hate you." And the next 4 strategies will be for use in the heat of the moment. Now let's move on to the second C in my 5 C's parenting framework, consistency. Now, the second strategy is based on psychologist Carl Rogers' powerful concept of unconditional positive regard. And if you've ever heard me talk about unconditional positive regard before, then you know how important it is to use this in the moment of your child saying, "I hate you," and also how hard it is to do that. So unconditional positive regard means always showing acceptance for your child while still addressing the unwanted behavior. So it means non-judgmentally viewing your child's behavior as something that happened and can be addressed, but does not detract from your child's worth and goodness. So their actions are events along their life path, and these actions never take away from them being loved, respected, and a valued member of your family. So even though your child has just said they hate you, you try to respond non-judgmentally, putting aside any thoughts that might immediately pop up in your head, like, "How dare you speak to me like that?" or "Oh, you ungrateful child," or whatever else comes to your mind. These are normal reactions for parents to have in this situation. But it's really important that you don't say that to your child. They're growing, they're learning, they're testing boundaries. It doesn't make them a bad person. So instead, you focus on maintaining respect and approval during the corrective process. You can do that while still upholding your boundaries about how you want to be spoken to. So here's what this looks like. You might say something like, "I can tell you feel really strongly about this. Let's find a better way to say that." Or, "Your feelings are very important to me, but that's a very hurtful way to express them." Now, is that easier said than done? Absolutely. But it's something that you can master with practice, and I bet you can. When your child feels accepted, even during correction, they maintain their positive sense of self while learning how to behave in a more socially acceptable way. Now, as an added bonus, by showing them unconditional positive regard, they feel more connected with you and become much more open to changing their behavior. Before we move on to our third C, has there been a time when you used unconditional positive regard in an especially tense parenting moment? I'd love to hear about it and how that made you and your child feel. Next, let's talk about the choices and checkpoints category. This third category in my 5 C's parenting framework includes teaching parents about normal developmental milestones in terms of how your child thinks and feels and acts. And depending on your child's age, it's likely very normal range experience for them to say these hurtful words to you. And reminding yourself of this in the moment can make it a lot easier to help you keep your cool and react in a loving manner. So in my coaching program, I have weekly Q&As where parents can get personalized guidance on questions like, is it normal for my child's age for them to say this to me? And for today, let's just operate under the assumption that it is, that they're at the right age, very normal thing. And maybe they heard it from a friend or that they've been hanging out with recently, or maybe it was in a TV show that they just watched. Or maybe this has happened before and it's just coming up again now. If you find yourself in this situation, take a slow, deep breath in response and try saying to yourself, this is hurtful but normal behavior. This little mantra can help you focus on this as a teaching moment rather than reacting in a defensive way that likely won't improve the situation. So if you can take that extra little beat, it will be much better in the long run. And it doesn't feel good to hear I hate you, but it doesn't have to mean that you respond with an equally ugly statement. Next up is the consequences category. And here's the game-changing strategy that I promised. The best way to make sure that the situation doesn't further escalate when your child says, I hate you. So you focused on unconditional positive regard to give your child corrective feedback in a respectful way. You've used your choice as a checkpoints mantra to normalize this behavior to help you keep your cool. This next step, as long as your child is in a safe space, say, let's circle back to this conversation a little later when we're both feeling more composed. Most parents feel like they have to hash it out right then and there, but rarely is there any real time pressure when you're having this sort of interaction. And when you give your child the opportunity to become more calm and composed, they often follow up with an apology for having used such an unkind statement. Now, here's a pro tip. This is far more likely to happen if you have modeled this behavior in the past. For example, if you ever lost your cool with your kiddo and raised your voice, which, let's face it, almost all parents ever have done that, then you can circle back later when you're more calm and you can apologize to them. So you're modeling that behavior for them. When you consistently choose to give your child some space in response to strong negative emotions, and consistently model for them this practice of circling back to the conversation in a more composed manner later, you teach them valuable coping and communication skills, and you strengthen your parent-child relationship because they know that you have unconditional positive regard for them and support them through both good times and bad. Now it's time for our fifth and final step in my 5 C's parenting framework. Just because your child said they hate you does not automatically mean that you're a terrible parent. It's very possible that your child said such a strong statement because of any number of other reasons. Their raging hormones, or another kid upsetting them that day and them taking it out on you. Or maybe they're a little annoyed with you, but they forgot to eat their lunch, and so now they're completely crashing and they're just saying all sorts of dramatic things. Despite the fact that there may be some factor like that affecting the interaction, this is a good moment to do some self-reflecting and to think about what you might have done differently to avoid the situation. So maybe you've been a little stressed lately and haven't been as caring in your interactions with your child. Or maybe you're exhausted and more likely to snap than normal. It could be any number of stressors that have been putting a damper on your parenting lately. And sometimes a negative interaction with our kids, they're just that. It's a negative interaction. But sometimes they can spark a moment of clarity and inspire a meaningful change in your parent-child dynamic. And that's the essence of this 5th Check Yourself step. You've now learned 5 practical tips to use when your child says those dreaded words. Now remember, kids who lose their temper and say hurtful things to their parents are kids who are still working on developing a concept called emotional intelligence. To learn about what emotional intelligence is and the 6 steps to teach it to your child, just head to my next video. And keep up the good work on your amazing parenting journey.